back to the Stitch Sessions and welcome to this month's pillow project. So many of you know every year I do a crochet series, and this year it is Pillow Talk. And for the month of October, we are working on this really cute, what ended up being a floor poof. So this project was very much fall and Halloween inspired. It was a pumpkin type of motif, although it's ending up looking more like an acorn. So, you know, take it as you will. It is reversible, so it's darker on this side, and then turn it over, it's a little bit lighter on this side. And so I used the Jacob's ladder stitch to create a little definition, because again, my inspiration was a pumpkin inspiration, and I thought it would make for a nice little definition of ridges. Now, it's turned out to be more of a poof because of kind of the thickness I ended up creating with this pillow. Actually, I really love it from the side. So I ended up stuffing this with some old towels. I really like using old towels or socks, things like that. And that way I'm reusing and recycling the things that I have. Now with the towels, it's definitely a very nice firm pillow. I like my pillows to be a little firmer. Now this one ended up being a bit firmer than I had thought. So it actually makes for a fantastic poof, a floor poof. I have my goddaughter coming over all the time and my niece, so it's perfect for a little person. So as you can see, I put it here by the foot of my bed and where I sometimes crochet here. So it really was a self-evolving creation. So we work this from the center out. So we work one side, then we work the other, and then we sew up each end. And at the very end, I just crocheted a little kind of puff stitch circle that created like this little nub here, which I thought would make a really pretty kind of stalk for the pumpkin or acorn, however you see this, totally up to you. And I'm really happy. Actually, I really like this side especially. The puff stitches here just came out so nice and even, and the little nub here just came out really, really perfect. So what do you guys think? Does it look more like a pumpkin, or is it giving you acorn vibes? Like right there, it's giving me acorn vibes. So I will leave this up to your personal interpretation, and you'll also see how this design actually evolved as I crocheted it. So I think you'll find it very interesting and a lot of fun. It's different, and this Jacob's ladder stitch is so easy. It looks really complicated. It makes it look like it's a fancy cable, but if you know how to chain stitch, you can create this stitch too. Now, by the way, if you are new here, my name is Karen, and I love crochet and I love crafting with crochet. So you're going to see a lot of fun projects like this, as well as garments and clothing and things like that. So welcome, and I'm excited that you're hanging out with me today. So let's move on over to talking about the materials you're going to have to gather to create your floor poof. And then let's get stitching up our pumpkin / acorn poof. Alrighty, so the yarn I'm using for this pillow, it's been out for a little bit and I've been dying to try it out. So this is the project we're going to use it on. So I've got 2 skeins here, which should be plenty for 1 pillow. You might get a second pillow out of it, but 1 pillow to be on the safe side. And in case you're wondering, this particular color is called clay, and this one is called burgundy. So I thought this would be kind of perfect for fall, especially with Thanksgiving, Halloween coming up. I thought these colors would work really, really nicely together. So it is the Peyton's inspired yarn, and it is 75% acrylic and 25% wool. So keep that in mind. They come in 150 gram skeins, which contain 203 meters or 222 yards. Okay, so I have 1 skein each in the clay, as well as 1 skein in the burgundy. I also picked up this extra skein in this color called Honey Spice, just to add a little embellishment to the center of our pillow. Now, they do recommend that the hook size you use is a 6mm hook, which indeed is the hook size I am going to be using for this project. And that's also known as a J or a size 10 for those of you that go by that label. Okay, and for any project, just always make sure that you have your yarn needle on hand to sew in your ends and a handy pair of scissors to snip your yarn. So, are you guys ready to get started on this pillow? Let's do it. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with the burgundy color, and then we will switch over to our clay color. So we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook here. And then we want to chain 100. Okay, so once you have your chain of 100, you want to make sure it's not twisted. Okay, and then you want to find the very first chain, and then what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch into that chain to create a nice large ring. Okay, just like that. So now it's all joined together. So now we're going to begin round number 1. So for round 1, I meant to say round, I think I said row earlier. What we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, and we're going to find the very next chain, and we are going to single crochet into it. Now what's a little different here is instead of going in through the front, we're just going to turn our chains over so that we're going to work into those back bumps there. Okay, so the first bump that we see is right there. You might have to help it along. And single crochet. And that is what we're going to do into every single back bump of this round. Okay, so I'm just going to do a few here so that you can see the outcome. Next bump is right there. Single crochet. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around, and then you're going to slip stitch to the very first single crochet, but I'll meet back with you shortly once I finish my round here. Okay, once you've come up to the end of your round, you're just going to find the top of the very first single crochet. For me, that's right here. And I'm going to slip stitch to join, just like that. And so round 1 is complete. So now what we're going to do is we are going to move on to round number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to go back into that same stitch right there. Sorry, my lighting's not that great today. And I'm going to single crochet. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into that left leg right there. I'm going to insert my hook, I'm going to pull up another loop, and I'm going to single crochet again. So what that does is that creates what I like to call a self-contained double crochet stitch. So some people like to do the chain 3 or the chain 2, but because I don't want there to be too much of a gap here, this is what I'm going to be using at the beginning of all of my rounds. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, nice and easy, is just a double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So including the first one I have here, I will end up having 5 double crochet stitches in a row. And this is my 5th one here. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so for my Jacob's ladder stitch, I like to chain 8. Then all we're going to do is we're going to go into the very next stitch, and we're going to continue with our double crochet stitches. We're going to place 5 of these again. So right into the very next stitch, you insert. So you see working into the back bumps has given us a nice stitch that we can work into as opposed to just a chain, okay? Be careful you don't twist your work here. So double crochet, and a lot of times I'll hold that first one here because it's just creating a little bit of a gap. And double crochet. So you're gonna end up having something that looks like this, and it's gonna feel really wonky. And don't panic is my advice. So there's a few different variations on how people do the Jacob's ladder stitch. Now this is the way that I do mine, and you're gonna see it all come together as we work subsequent rounds. So once you've done that double crochet, like I said, you're gonna do 4 more into stitch there. Okay, so I've done my 5 double crochets, and now I'm gonna chain 8 again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is essentially the repeat for your whole round. You're gonna double crochet 5, chain 8, double crochet 5, chain 8, and continue. So you should still have 100 stitches going around. So we're never going to count these chain 8s as stitches. These are just loops that are going to help us create that little cable-like effect. So go ahead and do that all the way around, and then I'll meet up with you at the end of round number 2. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the end of my round here. I've got 1 more stitch left right there. And now I'm going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now because we've come to the end of our round here, what we're going to do is we're going to find the top of that initial stitch that we did, and we're going to slip stitch into that stitch there. And we're going to have what looks like a huge gap there. I know that it looks really, really funny. So let me just pull this up a little bit here. So now we've worked our round with our basic repeat. So you've got something that looks like this. You've got a big old kind of circle, and there's all these funky loops hanging out there, and that's okay. So as you can see, just make sure it's not twisted, and you are good to go. So essentially what we're going to do, the pattern here is we're going to repeat row 1 and row 2. So I'm going to take you in through row number 3, which is going to be a repeat of row number 1. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to now chain 1, and into that same spot where we slip stitched, we're going to single crochet. Okay, just like that. Okay, and we're going to single crochet into every single stitch for this round. So as I come closer here to the loop, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So this would be the 5th stitch. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to push that loop back, totally ignore it. And I am going to single crochet into the top of that very first double crochet there. So you should always be single crocheting into clusters of 5. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, and then I push this loop back and I just continue single crocheting. So I like to count it in 5s. That way I don't miss this first loop here, because sometimes people will go right into this one. So you want to make sure that you always have sets of 5, and that way your actual stitch count will always remain the same. Okay, so what's happening here is that we are going to be working basically from the back side or the inside of our pillow. And so what happens is when we push those loops back, it creates these little cinched in loops right there. Okay, so that's why I don't worry about slip stitching like some people that do the Jacob's ladder stitch. they usually do a little slip stitch, and that creates that cinched in. I do not, because I use the single crochet method, and also because when we start looping our cables together, you will see why I don't bother, but that's what it looks like. So that's essentially what you're going to do all the way around. For round number 3 is a single crochet round. You'll slip stitch to join, and then you're going to repeat around number 2, which is the one we just completed previously, which is the 5 double crochets and chain 8. Okay, so again, you're just going to repeat row 1 and row 2, row 1 and row 2 until, so all you're going to do now, I'm going to set you off. You're now just going to continue to repeat round 1 and round 2 for a total of 19 rounds. And once you're done that, I'm going to meet you back here, and I'm going to take you through to the next step. Okay, so I have completed 19 rows, and that means that my last row here was my single crochet row. Now I've turned it what will be right side out, but the whole time I've been crocheting, you will notice that your work generally will look like this. So I have come up to the end of my skein. I have about this much left. So I'm going to stop here. So what I wanted to show you guys is that your work now looks like this on the right side. So it's got all these little loops here. It might give you a little reminiscence of the loop stitch that we did a few months back. But it is very different in the sense that the loops are created with the chain stitches. So what we're going to do before we kind of end off this side of the pillow and change colors is we need to create our little cable, which is what the Jacob's ladder effect does. So let me see, where did I have it here? I've already done a few little rows here. There we go. So what you're going to do is you are now going to take all of these little chain loops and you are going to feed them one through the other to give it that braided look, just like that. Okay, and I've done a few rows here. So it starts from the bottom and they just look like they're braided together. Isn't that cool? And all it is just taking your chain loops and looping them one into the other. And I'm going to show you how you're going to do that right now. So the idea is that you want to make sure that all of your loops are intertwined so that at the top you just have the last little loops waiting to be crocheted in at the end. Okay, so I'll take this next little row here, and it's super easy. So you're going to take your first loop. Now, I do mine just slightly different. I mean, there's a couple of different, there's a few little variations on how some people will create their Jacob's ladder. This is just how I do mine. So that first loop right there, I just take it and I twist it so that it's got a little bit of an X shape happening there. And I like to do that because it cinches. See how there's this gap that gets created there? It just helps to cinch it in a little bit more tightly. So the first one right away, I do that. Now I go to the loop above it and I take this loop and I'm going to feed it through this one, but make sure that you feed it through while it's still been twisted across. See that? And then it comes up like that. Now, if you don't twist it and you just feed this one through and put it through, it's not the end of the world, but see how that gap is really huge? So I want to close that gap in. So that is why I always twist first, then I go to the loop above and I feed it through. Okay, and I just kind of pull it up so that it sits nice and snug there. And then I do the same thing with this current loop. I take it, I twist it first, and then I go to the loop above and I feed it through. Okay, just like that. And I just keep doing that all the way up. So I always twist first. And actually, if you want to, you can take your hook and use that to grab the next loop and bring it through. Just helps to make it a little easier if you want. I always like to use my fingers just because I for me, feel like I can maneuver a little bit better that way. Okay, and again, so I twist and pull up the one above. And that is how you create that little braided look, which we call the Jacob's Ladder stitch. Isn't that cool? So this is the texture that's going to help to give our pillow that really kind of pumpkin feel and look. So what you want to do is you want to go all the way around. And so you've created all of these rows of loops. And you want to do that all the way around this side. And once you're done, I'm going to meet up with you here, and you should just have your last loops at the end here. So see, this one is the last one up here. Make sure that's twisted. And then your final loop is here. So at the end, you should have just the last loop of every row waiting to be stitched in. So there's a lot of loops here. This should be probably 20. So remember, we had 100 stitches in every 5th stitch we were doing this. So that's going to give you 20 rows. So I'm going to meet up with you once you've looped in all of your rows. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to do this last little round here. Okay, so I've finished kind of braiding all of my loops. So I have a texture that looks like that. I'm pretty happy with it. And so now we need to kind of make sure that these loops all connect together so that these braids stay. Now I'm getting a little nervous because this is the end of this color. So I'm going to take us through this round here. So I've just slip stitched to join. So I was working in this direction, and now I'm going to turn my work so that the outside has the braids. And what I'm going to do here I'm just going to actually insert my hook into this braid here, pull up a loop, and single crochet. So that secures this loop here, that it won't come undone, and therefore it won't unravel all of the other loops. Just like that, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip the next stitch, next 2 stitches, and into the next one, the 3rd one there, I'm going to single crochet. So there's going to be a bit of a decreasing action happening here. So again, I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches and I'm going to come up to a loop. Into the loop, I will single crochet. Then I skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and into that one, I will single crochet. Skip 1, 2, I come up to a loop, insert into the loop, and single crochet. Okay, so again, 1, 2, insert, 1, 2, and into the loop. Just like that. So you can already see that it's starting to bunch in. So my hope is that I'll get all the way around here with just this much left yarn. And then we'll talk about starting the other color on the other side. So we're just basically working on creating the shell at the moment. Okay, so I just stitched up from my last loop. I skipped 2 and I'm going to skip the last 2 and I'm back to the beginning. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to find that single crochet where I went into that first loop, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. Just like that, okay? And you can see that it's already creating a puckering, and I'm so happy because I still have a little bit of yarn left. So I'm actually just going to pull this right through. Okay. And let me just puff this up a little bit so you can see the effect. So see, it's starting to come in the center, and it's creating that nice little kind of pumpkin-y type of feel. Now, we do still need to cinch this right in, but I'm not going to worry about this right now. What I want to do is now work on the other end of the pillow and bring in that other color that we have here, okay? So now we're going to work along the bottom of your initial chain row or round. That's why I worked into the back bump. So now we have nice clear stitches to work into. So we're going to actually find the very beginning here. Actually, where's that tail? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to start from here. Okay, so I'm actually just going to start a little bit to the right of this tail, and then I'm going to work right over it. So I'm just going to insert my hook right about there, and I'm going to pull my loop through. And because this is bulky yarn, I didn't place a slip knot on my hook just because I'm trying to avoid as much bulk as I can. Now, if you're more comfortable with the slip knot, by all means, go for it. But I am just going to chain one here. Okay, so I'm going to imitate what I did in the previous round, okay? So we're going to do a first round just simply doing single crochet stitches. So I'm going to go right back into the same stitch there. I'm going to single crochet. So that's going to give us our establishing round here. And essentially, it's also going to give me the opportunity just to kind of work over those tails. Now, because this is a pillow, working over the tail is not really a big deal because that's going to be on the inside once we put our stuffing in, but it's just a little something that I like to do. So that is what I'm going to do all the way around. Single crochet into every single stitch. Okay, so I've finished my first round here. I still have 100 stitches, and I just wanted to show you kind of how to work in so that you're kind of staying in line with these braids, because remember, I did not start in the same place. I kind of picked a random spot. Now, what I noticed is that I'm 4 stitches in from where these loops begin. So remember, we were doing them every 5 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to chain 1, go back into that same stitch and single crochet, and then go into that left leg, pull up a loop, and single crochet again. So that's our first double crochet, and now I'm going to do 3 more. So I have 1. Here is the second one, and here is the third one. So in total, I have 4 double crochet stitches, and that brings me perfectly over the loops. So that's just for this beginning here. And then once we get into the groove, you just do it every 5 stitches like before. Like I said, because I started in a funny spot, I had to do 4. So then you're going to do your chain 2, and then go into the next stitch and do your 5 double crochets. So this is now done exactly the same way you did the other side. Okay, so nothing new here. Okay, I just love how those 2 colors play off of each other. So that's what you're going to do. Now the only thing is, when you come back around, you will do your 5 stitches, you're going to do your chain loop, and then you're going to have 1 more stitch left. So you're going to double crochet into this stitch, and that will give you your 5 in between every loop. Then you're going to slip stitch to join, turn your work, then do your round of single crochets, turn your work, and you know the repeat. So then you're going to do exactly what you did on this side to the other side, and you're going to do the same thing, cinching in at the end. Once you have your second side done, then I'm going to meet back up with you, and we are going to discuss finishing the form of the pillow and stuffing it. Okay, it is looking so good. I love that braided effect. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you to do side number 2. Okay, so I have now done my other side here, and I'm just going to take you through what I ended up doing on this side here. I did 1 more round actually at the end. So that is basically it. So my tail is there. This is 1 skein of that yarn. This is the second skein, and this is what I've got left. So you can see I still have an opening there. I've just now finished off all of my braided ridges there. You can see I did that single crochet row to just kind of start cinching in the center. Now I'm going to go and do another round. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here to cinch it in even further. So I've slip stitched to join here. I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to go back into the same stitch right here, and that happens to be the stitch that is going through the top loop here. So I am actually going to decrease into basically every stitch. So I'm going to go back in here, pull up a loop, but instead of just doing one single crochet, I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to go to the next stitch, pull up a loop so that I have 3 loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is what I'm going to do all the way around. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, which is right here next to that loop, pull up a loop, and then into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. So I always insert and pull up and then insert into the next one and pull up before I resolve the stitch. And that's basically it. So this is a decrease, so it takes 2 stitches and makes it 1. Okay, and so that's what you're going to do all the way around. And see, it's still quite a large opening, so you should notice that the opening is going to decrease in size. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this off here. Okay, so as you can see, the opening has decreased a bit. And I have a total, I've gone from 40 stitches to 20 stitches, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slip stitch to the top of this first stitch right here. Okay, I'm gonna chain and pull through. So I have a little bit more left over in this skein than I did in the other one, but still, I mean, that's basically it. Okay, so it's just like that. So this is all we have left here and all we have left there. You can see I still have the stitch marker in there just to remind myself where the end is. So essentially now you have what looks like this tube, and it's got an opening on each side. It actually is it's giving me some serious Acorn vibes. So now this is where I'm going to introduce that third color, that third skein of yarn. Now, initially, the design thought process was that I was actually going to use, so I'm going to use this color in the center, right? But the initial thought was that I was going to use the dark color for the center of the light side and the light color for the center of the dark side. The only thing is, there's really not much left of each color, and I wanted to go all the way to the end. So just simply out of economics, I didn't want to have to buy a whole skein of both of these colors just to do the center. And I'm really trying to do better about not accumulating yarn unnecessarily. So instead of having to get 4 skeins to do this, I just was going to get the 1 skein of each color, and then I would use kind of a slightly different contrasting color for the center. So this is still the Payton's Inspired yarn, and this is called Honey Spice. I thought it would make for a great center point and kind of going in with that autumn color vibe and giving off a little bit of those pumpkin vibes, although right now it's looking like an acorn. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this center color. So yes, I think I am going to, I don't really need the stitch marker in here. And I did do the full decrease. I'm actually going to take this out on this side just momentarily. And this will be the side that we put our stuffing in, or we place our stuffing through. So I just want it to be a little bit more open so that we have some room to work with. So I'm just opening that up there. And then once we've done the stuffing, and then we can sew that back up. So I know I'm kind of going back and forth in this project, but this is a great example of how when you're trying to be very economical with your yarn, I will do things like this where I'll do one side, but I won't quite finish it. And then I come to the other side and see where I'm at. And then I can make sure that my yarn is staying nice and balanced. So that's a little trick that I do. And in fact, I talked about that in my crochet chicken game video, which was just last week, by the way. And if you haven't watched that, you really should, because I had less than half a skein of yarn, and I challenged myself to make a pair of fingerless gloves to use up all of that yarn. And it was pretty exciting. So you should definitely go and watch that if you haven't. Now, in the meantime, let's talk about this center here. Okay, so for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of tuck this little bit inside there. I may need it later on, I may not, but I'll just put it on the inside. So you have this nice, beautiful opening, and you can see that nice braided texture. So I'm gonna bring this in, and we are now gonna use some puff stitches. Let's place a slip knot on our hook for this one. I don't always do this when I'm attaching, but for this one, I'm going to. So we have a slip knot, and you're just gonna find a spot anywhere around the top. And so I'm gonna go here just a couple of stitches over. I'm gonna insert my hook and slip stitch to join my yarn. There we go. Just gonna throw that tail inside as well. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna chain up 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Now this is not really gonna count as anything. It's just allowing us to have a little bit of that height. And so what we're gonna do now is you can see right where I started, there is a loop here. And so what I wanna do is I'm gonna yarn over and I'm gonna reach down. So this is a couple of rows down. I'm gonna reach into that loop. So you can see this is where the braiding for this row here ends. I'm gonna reach in through that loop and I'm gonna pull up a loop there. So this is the chain loop that created that braiding effect. Now you can see I'm stretching it up so it goes right up to the height of that chain 3. I'm gonna yarn over, and I really like to trap it there with my finger if I can. And I'm gonna go back into that same spot and I'm gonna pull up another loop. So that's 2 times I've done that. And then I'm gonna yarn over, secure it. I'm gonna go in one more time and pull up another loop. So I'm basically pulling up loops 3 times, and just make sure it's sitting up nice and tall. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna yarn over and I'm gonna pull through all of them except the last one. Just like that, okay? So you've got that puff there, you've got 2 loops. And then I'm gonna yarn over and chain, okay? What that does is it's just gonna secure this, but I haven't finished this stitch because I actually, again, we're trying to decrease the size of that opening. So this is not quite finished yet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find the very next chain loop, see? So this is where our braid is. You wanna find where that loop is, and you're gonna do your next puff stitch into there. So this is gonna be a puff decrease because we're gonna decrease the number of stitches. So you're gonna insert. So that means, yes, you are gonna go down a couple of rounds. Remember to pull it up all the way, yarn over, insert, pull up a second time, yarn over, insert, pull up a third time. You've got all these loops on your hook here. Yarn over, pull through all of them except 2 this time. So remember, these 2 are from the previous puff. Then you're going to yarn over and chain. So now you've got 2 live puffs on the hook, 3 loops. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of them. So now we've decreased these 2 stitches down to this one here, okay? So essentially we're connecting all of the rows of braids, okay? So then we're gonna do that again. You're gonna yarn over and go immediately into the next chain loop, which is right there. And pull up a loop, nice and tall, yarn over. Second time, yarn over, third time, yarn over, pull through all but 1, okay? Then we chain, so we always have these 2 here after the first puff. Now we're gonna go to do the second puff, yarn over. So we're always stitching 2 puffs together. Pull that up, yarn over, 2 times, and 3 times, yarn over, pull through all but 2 this time. So you've got 3 loops on the hook. Then you're gonna do a little chain here. That secures each puff on its own. And then we yarn over and pull through all 3. And again, we've brought these 2 stitches to create 1. So I'm just gonna take this out here for a second. So the idea, and hopefully you can start seeing that, is that we're trying again to decrease the opening and give it that nice little look of being the stock or the center of our pillow here. Okay, so pretty straightforward. You're just going to puff stitch decrease, find the loop, the chain loop at the top of each braid. So these two would now be puffed together. And then these two would be puffed together. So you're going to keep going all the way around until you come back to the beginning of your round. Okay, so the goal is to get down to 10 stitches in total. Okay, so I have completed the round. Okay, and I am now down to 10 stitches. So I'm just at the end here. I just wanted to show you, I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of this first decrease stitch, which is right here. So you're just going to slip stitch, just like to tighten my loops. And now you've closed off that round. So you can really see that it's gotten much smaller. And actually, if I pull that out there, now you can see, definitely see that little center design. So we're basically just going to keep decreasing until it just closes right up. So now we're just going to use some half double crochet stitch decreases. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that tight there. I'm going to chain one. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to insert into this current stitch, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to go into the next one and pull up a loop. But what I actually want to do is I actually want to go between these clusters of stitches. Okay, so I'm just going to take this out here for a second. So I yarned over. Instead of going into this stitch here, because see how it's really stretched out, I want to go right here where that chain 3 was before, just in between there to pull up the first loop. And then I'm going to find the next stitch and then just go underneath that. And this just gives me a little extra, what I feel is sustenance for my stitch here. So I've got 4 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through all 4. I am trying to hold it fairly close together so it doesn't get too loose, because again, I'm trying to close up that gap. So then I go to the next one, yarn over first, and there's the next stitch, because see, this stitch we worked by going under here. So instead of going in the stitch, we're going to work in between that puff to pull up this loop. I don't want to stretch this loop up very high because it's not a puff stitch. And then I'm going to go to the next stitch, which is right here, but then go between to pull up the next loop. See, 4 loops on the hook, and then pull through all 4 of those stitches. And you can really see it's coming together really nice and tight. So that's what I'm going to keep doing all the way around. So I have this one, and then I go to the next stitch, which is here, and I'm going to work in between and pull up 4 loops, and I pull through all of them. Okay, there we go. Look at how tight that's getting. I believe I have 1 more to go. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into that next stitch, pull up, and then I'll find the next stitch, which is right there, go under and pull up 4 loops and pull through all 4. And this should bring me back to the beginning here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease again. Most likely I'm going to use just single crochets this time. And I'm not even going to worry about slip stitching because we're just going to keep decreasing. So I'm going to go into the spot between here and the spot between there. So now I'm just really closing up this gap here. So there's 3 loops on the hook because remember we're doing single crochet decreases. Pull through all 3. Okay. And now you just want to eyeball. See how close it's getting to being closed. Okay. And then we go into the next stitch, or in between is what I like to do. Okay. So we're just about there. So you just keep decreasing. We're about down to 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we're just down to 4 stitches. So you're just going to keep decreasing, and probably in 2 more stitches, you will be ready to finish this off here. Okay, so I've closed up my center here. So I just had 2 stitches left, and then I just stitched across. So This is what I have left. It is looking pretty sparse in the center here because we used all those puff stitches, so it's stretched out. Don't worry about that. We are going to add a little embellishment at the end. See, so it looks a little bit lacy right now, but that's okay. So right now, all I want to do is I'm just going to snip my yarn here. I just needed to create a closure so we can start stuffing this pillow. So I'm just going to pull that nice and tight. Okay, and then you can even just feed it in through here. Just bring that in. Okay, so now I'm just going to flatten this out here so you guys can see it a little bit better. It kind of looks, like I said, it's very much looking like an acorn at the moment. Okay, just by puffing it out, you can see the design that we're going for here, right? Just like that. Okay, so it looks, I know it looks a little messy in the center, but like I said, we're going to put an embellishment there after, so that's going to all go away. So I just wanted to have that closure so that now when we turn this over, we can now get to the business of stuffing it. Now, as I look at it, you can do this a couple of different ways because as you can see, it's creating like this tube. So even if you wanted it to be almost like a bolster pillow and keep it rounded this shape, you could do that. But I'm really aiming to keep this circular like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my stuffing. Now, I have chosen to use a lot of old towels to insert. It just is going to create a little bit more sturdiness, but also the other reason too is because this yarn is washable, then, you know, having towels or old towels in here, it just makes it that much easier. You can just throw in a wash, take it out. So we're not going to do any type of button or zipper closure. We are going to crochet this shut. So that's why I like the use of the towels. And I like to just be able to kind of recycle things I've got lying around. If you're using polyfill, you will need quite a bit. The other thing you could do is actually get a round pillow insert. So there's lots of options for that. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of my kind of towels to insert, and then we will get stitching this up. Okay, so I have about 2.5 towels here. They're old towels. Some of them are stained from my hair dye and all that kind of stuff. So just make sure that you've washed them. They're nice and dry. You don't want them damp in here. And we're just going to start stuffing our pillow here. So what I'm going to do now, you can cut this into strips. The only thing with these towels is they do, I don't know if the word is pill, but there's a lot of little strands that go everywhere. So I'm going to do my best not to cut it, but I'm just going to take it. This is the long side here, and I'm just going to insert it and kind of start creating like a bit of an O or a donut around. So I don't just want to randomly shove it all in there. So when I'm stuffing it, I'm making sure that it's going in this way, yeah? So I'm gonna add this one in. So this is a second one. And I'm gonna continue stuffing it in this manner, kind of nice and round. There we go. Now it's starting to look more like a pumpkin. So you can see where we're going. And I like the fact that it actually feels nice and firm. I like a firm pillow. I don't like it when it's too soft. Okay, so at this point, and if you wanted to, you can actually stuff it a little bit more. But at this point, once you've got it close to how you want it stuffed, this is where you're going to close up the other side. And you're going to do it exactly the way we did the first side. So remember, in the first round of decreases, we decreased every stitch using a decreased single crochet. So right now we have about 40 stitches, and so we want to decrease this down to 20 and then 10 and do exactly what we did on the other side. Oh, sorry. So these are going to get decreased down to 20 stitches, and then this yarn runs out completely. So at that point, that's when you're going to get your yellow yarn here, and then you're going to do your puff stitches, and you're going to do the process exactly the same way you did on that side. So once you have that complete, so you can see that the pillow is starting to take shape. So you got the one color on this side and then you have the other color on that side. So once you've completed the second side and your pillow is completely sealed, you've got it stuffed, then we just have one more little thing we're gonna do just to clean up this little section here, okay? So I'm gonna leave you to close this, to stuff your pillow, close it up, and then I'll meet you back here in just a little bit. Okay, so we are done the stuffing. So you can see that the shape is now taking form. So it's basically a round pillow, but it's got some girth here. And so I really did want it to give me more pumpkin vibes, but from the side, it's still giving me acorn vibes. So I'm happy with that. It's still very fall-like. It's giving me more pumpkin vibes on the top. Now, what we want to do is we want to create just a little topper here that we're going to put on each side, and super easy. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that right now. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start off with a magic ring. And then all we're going to do is pull up a loop, and we're going to chain 3. So we have the first chain to secure it, and then the next 2 chains will give us the height that we need. Now this is not going to count as anything, it's just giving us the height. We're going to be using puff stitches again. So I'm just going to take that little tail out. And so all we're going to do is we're going to place puff stitches into this ring. So that we've got 1, this first one is always a little tricky. 2, try your best to pull it up, and 3. And then you're going to pull through all of them except 1. And then here you're going to pull through both of them. So just slightly different than what we were doing when we were closing up the pillow. And so you're going to keep doing that. You're going to yarn over, and again, you're going to do a puff stitch. Really try to pull it up if you can, as much as you can. And second time, and third time, and pull through except for 1, and then yarn over and pull through both. So a little slightly different than the puff stitch decreases. So what you're going to do is you're going to place 12 puff stitches into the center of this ring, and make sure if you need to, you're going to pull it a little bit as you go so that you keep your tail exposed. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and I'll meet up with you when I've got my 12th puff stitch complete. Okay, I got a little excited off camera, so I finished my 12 puff stitches, and then I went ahead and cinched that circle shut. So basically, you can see right there, you've worked into the center, and this is the time when you take that tail and you pull it so it brings the center of your stitches together. See that? Got this cool little puff area here. And so what you want to do is at the very end here, you want to find the top of the very first stitch, which is right there. So not the chain 3, the actual stitch. And you just want to slip stitch, just like that. And then you can push that forward. And there we go. This is going to be the topper to our pillow. Now what you want to do is you're going to chain 1 here, and then leave a bit of a tail, because we're going to need it to sew this in to the top of our pillow. Okay, just like that. So if I bring our pillow back here, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this topper and we're going to place it on top of all of this kind of what looks crazy, although it does look kind of cool actually. But if we place it on top of here just like that, look at how finished that looks. Doesn't that look cool? Love this. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to get your yarn needle, and you're going to proceed to sew this in around these edges here. Okay, and I'm just going to hide this tail. Okay, so I've got my yarn needle here. This one is good for bulky yarn. So I've got that through here just like that. And so now I'm going to place this topper right where I like it. And I love the firmness, and so much so that I would even make this, if you wanted to make this a little bigger and make it into a poof where you can kind of sit on it or put your feet on it, it would also make for a great poof as well. So look at us with all these versatile ideas. All right, so I've got that here. I'm placing it relatively where I want it. So the idea is to make it look like these puffs here are kind of like a starburst coming out. So it's relatively pretty good. And now what I'm going to do, let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. There we go. Is I just want to go in and pick up a couple of stitches or loops like that. I'm going to insert and then come up through the first stitch here. So remember we did 12 puff stitches. So there's 12 loops or 12 stitches at the end there. So there's my first one. I'm going to try my best to keep it as centered as I can. And then so I'm going to continue the calendar and then come up here, and then come through the next stitch. Just like that. I'm trying to keep this puff going there. There we go. And then we come in through here. Sorry guys, hopefully you can see this. Lane's not that right on the side. So we come through here, and then so this is the both side, and there is the stitch right there. Okay, and then pull through. And you're just going to get all the way around until it's sewn in. And then you just want to hide your tail, just sew it in, and then Bob's your uncle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew it in, and then I'll show you how I'm going to hide my tail in. So I'm going to continue on here and sew in my topper, and then I'll be back here in just a moment. Okay, look at that. Isn't that adorable? So it's got this beautiful little puff. It's a raised edge here. It just creates this really fun, cool, cute little texture here. So see, now it's really looking very pumpkin-like. I love that. All right, so at the very end, don't worry about snipping off your yarn. Just kind of insert it into the project here. And there we go. And your end is hidden. Look at that. So you just need to do a second one for your other side, and then your pillow is complete. What do you think, guys? Was this not really cute to do? I mean, it was a little bit, it was easy, but then just at the end there, it just takes a little bit of patience because we're closing in that end. It is a little bit awkward here, but you know what? Just take your time. There's no rush. And I love this little puff stitch nib here, and I just think it looks divine. And it's really nice and firm. Yeah, you know what? I would totally do this as a poof, like a floor poof. Definitely for sure. So I'm really happy. I got to use up some of my older towels here, and this is going to make for a nice little embellishment. Actually, that is what I'm going to use it for. Now that the more I think about it and the more that I feel it, definitely going to use this as a little poof and just part of the general decor. So what did you think about the Jacob's Ladder loops? Pretty simple, right? It's a lot easier than you might have thought that it was going to be. And that's the fun part for me of showing you guys that a lot of this stuff that looks complicated is not as complicated as you think it is. Now, you may naturally have some more deeper questions about this project. So please do leave them for me in the comment box down below. As always, you guys know that you can also email me directly. I know a lot of you like to do that. So feel free to do that at info@crochetcrafty.com. I'm always very happy to answer any questions you may have. And you know what I'm going to say. Come and visit me at crochetcrafty.com. Lots of fantastic goodies there for you. So come and check it out. And don't forget to sign up for my monthly newsletter, where you are gifted a free written pattern every month. And if you're looking for more, check out our Etsy shop, which is Crochet Crafty Canada. And as always, tag me in your projects. Let me see what kind of colorways you decided to use for your crochet projects. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. Now, if you are new here and you enjoyed working on this project and you liked hanging out with us, I invite you to come and hang out with us more often. Just click that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Come hang out with me every Wednesday morning when I upload a brand new tutorial. And don't forget, make sure to click that notification bell. And that way you'll get alerted every time a brand new video goes live. All right, guys, that's it for me this week. And that is this month's pillow for October. Now, if you've missed any of our other pillow projects in this year's series, it's called Pillow Talk. And I'll leave a link to the full playlist in the description box down below so that you won't miss out on that. All right. In the meantime, have an amazing day. As always, happy crocheting. Remember to take really good care of yourselves. And I'll see you guys in next week's session. Bye.